Okay.
Okay, I want to hear about your trips to India.
I didn't do any. I haven't been to
Oh,
India.
you haven't been to
Not
India?
India. I've been to Asia, like
Okay,
Singapore and
okay.
China and
Then,
Japan.
then let's hear about that.
Okay. Um, I think the first one was to Singapore. And that was like very early on. I'm trying to remember. I think it was a training thing that we did for all the people around Singapore. And they pulled me over to do some training there. Um, what I remember about that was um, Singapore had been British up until very recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so you go to like a town square, there's pubs, British pubs in Singapore.
Mm.
You're going like, okay, I'm in Asia, but this looks more like something out of London or somewhere.
Yeah.
And I remember that. And about the only other thing I remember about Singapore, because I didn't do much traveling, we didn't really have the time to do much sightseeing, except like I walked around and they've got a beautiful, um, I don't know if it's a canal or a river downtown, but they got beautiful bridges over it
Mm-hmm.
and like restaurants and shops along the riverfront. And we did that, but I think we did that as a group. And one of the things about Singapore is it's probably the cleanest country I was in ever, because if you drop a gum wrapper, you get a ticket. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
You're standing there waiting for the bus, and you get a stick of gum, and that gum wrapper goes flying, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they keep the place super, super clean. And their police and justice system and all of that is really, really hard line on everything. One of my friends outside of work is Australian, and he talked about how they found some Australians with just tiny amounts of marijuana in some bags, and they like put them to death.
Mm.
Said you were drug smugglers, drug dealers, drug this, drug that, and put them to death.
Mm.
And that was a big deal because these were Australian citizens being killed by another government. But they said, no, that's our policy. Everybody knows that's our policy. And so here you go. And okay, wow. But I don't remember much else worth telling about Singapore itself. Good food and that sort of thing. But that was one of the early trips. Let's see. Next one would probably be Tokyo, Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went there, I'll never forget, I came down for breakfast after getting into the hotel, and it was the Tokyo Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
I came down, and there's just this massive, massive area for everybody to have food. And they had a giant spread for breakfast and every kind of food around the world, because Japanese people don't eat cereal
Mm-hmm.
or anything else like bacon and eggs or anything like that. They eat Japanese food, and Chinese people eat Chinese food. So they had to have all these different foods for everybody that might possibly come to the Hilton.
Mm.
And I sat down and I realized I was around a bunch of people who were paler than me, and it turned out it was the Finnish National Orchestra.
Mm.
All these people from Finland, and I got to chat with the one gal about that, how they were doing a world tour or something, and it was kind of interesting. That's the one where I did some sightseeing. I bought Brittany and Brenna both kimonos because they wanted those. And I did some sightseeing, but it was tough. It was a cold part of the year, and I'm on foot again,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and I wasn't going to get very far from the hotel, get lost. Um, so I saw a few things. There's one statue in this one park. They have a huge park, and it's near where the imperial family lives. The imperial family of Japan has a palace there, and this was alongside it, ginormous park, and wasn't much about the park except it had this one statue, and the statue is of a shogun, Japanese warrior, actually, and this guy was somebody famous in their history. And the statue itself, you can look it up. It's incredible, of this guy. The statue is just a beautiful piece of art. It was done like 400 or 500 years after the guy died, but it's amazing because the horse, every part of his mane is flowing. He looks like he's ready to kill somebody, just a horse, right? And then you got this guy on his back in the full Japanese armor and whatnot, and the helmet that comes down like this, and he's got his sword and everything, and he looks like, yeah, not a problem. I'll just chop off heads from here. It's a very, very impressive piece of sculpture, and that was when Brenna was in college, it was after Brenna had been in college, and she had that one roommate that had all the Hello Kitty stuff. Remember that? You might have heard about that. She had a roommate whose whole room was pink and was all Hello Kitty. I mean, she had a Hello Kitty guitar, the guitar case, Hello Kitty sheets, Hello Kitty tableware, everything, and brought it all to college. And Brenna was like, oh, I'm sick and tired of looking at Hello Kitty, you know, it's just too much. And so I went to a little gift shop next to this ginormous statue, and they had a little, like a hot pad or something like that. And it had that statue in kind of a cartoon, and they had Hello Kitty's face in place of the warrior's face. So I got her that. Yeah. And that's where they took us to a couple of customers in Tokyo. And then one day they said, okay, we're going to Kyoto, which was west of Tokyo. Tokyo is on the east, and this is on the west. And so we go all the way across the bottom of Japan to get there. And you ride the bullet train. And the bullet train goes like 200 miles an hour. It's pretty impressive. And it's smooth as can be. You order food. They have a woman that comes through in the full geisha costume with the white and the chopsticks sticking out of her hair and everything like that. And she's got the full geisha costume, and she's pushing a food cart. You can order whatever boxes they have on there. They didn't have any hot food, but they had that. And I think we both got one of those. And it was good. And then I remember they would come in, push in their cart, close the door, and bow to the car. And then as they went out, they would turn around and bow to the car. Formal Japanese bow. So we rode the bullet train all the way to Kyoto and did our thing out there the next morning, because it took a while, even at 200 miles an hour, to get out there. And we spent the night in the hotel, did our thing, and then we're coming back late in the day, late at night, on the bullet train back towards Tokyo. And my coworker lived there in Tokyo, right? And he had been kind of handling me and walking me around and making sure I got to the right place at the right time. And it was him and some of his coworkers organizing it. So I'm talking with him away and whatnot, riding the train. And all of a sudden he says, well, this is my stop. And we're not at the Tokyo station where the hotel is yet. And I'm going, okay, you're kind of abandoning me here. And what am I going to do? He says, yeah, this is my stop. I'm going to get off. And he said, he saw me kind of starting to freak out. Like, how am I going to get off this train and find my hotel? And he says, don't worry, the train will do a bunch more stops, and then the last stop, they'll be telling everybody to get off, and see everybody get off and all that sort of thing. It's the last stop, and you get off of there and go up the escalator, and there's your hotel. Right, piece of cake to do. And I asked him, I said, well, if I was lost or something like that, would I ask a cop? Because I saw that there had been police stationed around there, like any other big public place, they had some cops. And they were all little bitty guys. And he says, no, you don't want to talk to the cops because they might think you're threatening them. Not all of them speak English. They might not understand what you're trying to do. And every one of them is a karate champion. Every one of them knows every martial art there is, and they'll take you out. Mm-hmm. If they think that you're trying to be funny or just doing something stupid, they'll just punch you out first and ask questions later. And they can get away with that. It's legal. So it's like, okay. So he gets off, and I'm riding the train, and I don't speak any Japanese, and everything's in Japanese. There's no English anywhere, no other language even anywhere. And so the train pulls up, stops, and I get out. I've got my suitcase dragging behind me, and I get out, and it's like, okay, and there's 4 escalators. And I'm going, oh, great. Here it is, like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. It's dark. It might even have been later. It's dark at night, and I'm going to go up. And if I pick the wrong escalator, I'm on the streets of Tokyo, Lord knows where, looking very much like a tourist, dragging a suitcase behind me, and I'm going to die. And I went, oh boy, I'm never going to find this hotel. So I just picked an escalator, and it was the right one. And up I went.
That was lucky.
It was very much a blessing. I was sweating bullets there for a while because the reason that they have those cops knowing karate is that there's some rough people on the streets after dark. Mm-hmm. But it all worked out very well. So that was about my only story about Tokyo. In China, I went 2 places. One of them was Shanghai. Mm-hmm. And that, whenever you see a movie like a James Bond movie with China, they almost always do Shanghai because they have these skyscrapers that are lit up with colors on the outside. Enormous skyscrapers, and they run lights up and down in the windows and whatnot. And it's this sort of thing where it's like, oh, okay, this is China, right? So I was there, and gosh, I don't have very many good stories about that, although they took me out to dinner twice. And the first time there was supposed to be a guy with me, and he found some reason to bail on me and left me with these 2 women who weren't real happy about it. But they took me out to dinner, and it was kind of like, oh, let's see what the American will eat, or what will he get grossed out by when we eat. And that happened actually both times. The second time was just a one woman, and she ate the eye out of the fish. They had a whole fish, and they don't take the head off like we would here. Yeah, they left the head on, and she was eating all of the chunks of meat out of that, and then she ate the eye. She asked me first if it was okay, if it would gross me out, and I went, no, go ahead, but I'm not going to fight you for it. Mm-hmm. I remember the skyline was beautiful. I got to see a few things. There's the movie, The Bucket List, with Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, I know of it.
You know of it?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a scene in there about this coffee called Kopi Luwak. It's a pretty funny scene. I won't spoil it for you. Okay. But it's the most expensive coffee in the world. Mm-hmm. And so this isn't giving much away. Jack Nicholson's character is super, super rich. Mm-hmm. He owns hospitals. Yeah. And Morgan Freeman is just an average dude. And he's in one of those hospitals, and the two of them end up stuck together and develop a friendship, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at one point, Jack Nicholson's character is drinking this coffee, and it's like $150 a cup or something like that. It's insane, absolutely insane. Well, there was a coffee shop down around the corner from my hotel that served that. They actually had it there. And I looked at that and went, wow, you know, you're not going to find that in the States unless you really hunt.
Yeah.
And there it is for sale. And it was horrifically expensive. I remember that. And I didn't try any of it because you'll see why if you watch the movie.
Oh.
Okay. It's a pretty hilarious scene. Yeah, gosh, I don't think I did much of anything else in Shanghai. Then my second trip was to Shenzhen.
Mm-hmm.
And so Shanghai, as you come from the Pacific Ocean to the coast of China, Shanghai is about halfway down. From the north to the south. It's about halfway, give or take. Shenzhen is at the bottom. And so it's right next to Hong Kong. So I came into Hong Kong and had to figure out how to read Chinese really quick and figure out how to get on the right water taxi to go from Hong Kong to Shenzhen. And that's the Silicon Valley of China. So, I mean, they have a high tech all over the place in China.
Yeah.
But that's their Silicon Valley where all of the businesses are high tech. And they're doing all kinds of experimental stuff and that sort of thing. And that's why they wanted me there. I went to this one particular company and helped them out. I was by myself that time. I was all on my own and had to work out how to get from A to B and B to C and meet up with this guy. And I did it, buses and stuff like that, and figured out how to take taxis and whatnot. But, you know, a taxi, you never know. They could haul you off and kill you somewhere.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows who this taxi is? Unless you live there or have a guide, it's risky. So I was always trying to figure out how to get around that. And I think they gave me a bunch of very good directions is the way that I did it. And I remember they were doing these high-rise buildings. They were building skyscrapers mostly for housing, as I recall, because they didn't have enough housing. And they were slamming these things up like you wouldn't believe. Those buildings were going up super fast. And I kept wondering, are they building them so fast that they're going to fall down? Are they cutting corners on this? You never know. And they would get typhoons, you know. And so I was always worried a little bit about that. But I think the only thing that's worth telling about Shenzhen is that it's the high-tech area. And so they would draw in all the talented college kids from all around China, right? But the way the Chinese government does it is if you've got skills in math and science, they tell you where you're going to go. You don't get to choose. You don't get to pick your job. They tell you what your job's going to be. And that's what they did with these guys. They'd haul them in from all over China into this one town, and that's where you live and work. Well, your family could be halfway across the country, right? You might have gone to a university way to the west of there, and they just pick you out as having good grades and good skills, and they just say, you're going to go live in Shenzhen. They just tell you. And these guys were all okay with that. The point of that is, in Shanghai when I was there, it was Chinese New Year. And all these people, you as a Chinese person must go home to wherever your family is and spend the New Year with them. Well, it's the biggest migration of people on earth at that time It is the largest mass movement of population because, they'll drag a guy down to Shenzhen, and his family is in the northeast of China somewhere. And some of these people, they have to leave, and it takes them 6 or 7 days to get home, and 6 or 7 days to get back. Planes, trains, automobiles, you name it, and everything just gets jammed. All the buses, all the trains, everything, the airplanes, they're all jammed full of people. And so that was true in this case of Shenzhen. And I thought about it, I asked these guys, and none of them were from the area. None of them. They'd all been told, here's where you're going to work, and that was going to be their life, was living there. No choice. And so that was kind of an interesting cultural thing where we would think, yeah, I'll go move to New York or something like that. For them, it's like, no, here's what you're going to do. So that's probably pretty much all my stories about Asia. I didn't ever get to Australia, never got to India, never got to like Vietnam or Thailand or anywhere like that.
Did you ever go to Russia?
I never did get to Russia. I came close once to get to go to Russia, but no, didn't get to go there. Wanted to go to Australia and all these other places, but just didn't ever work out. We had guys in Australia who knew what I knew and didn't need me to come all that way with that expense. And in Russia, the situation was just kind of unstable the whole time. And so, and I would have been leery of going to Russia without having somebody in to meet me and keep me safe. Yeah, I would have been real touchy about that. So yeah, I never got to the Middle East, anywhere in the Middle East, never went to Israel or anywhere. I've got friends in Israel. Even to this day, I've got a Facebook friend in Israel and a couple other guys that I was good friends with for quite a while, but I've lost touch with them now. And yeah, never got to there. South Africa was the only place I went in Africa. Went all over Europe except Eastern Europe. I didn't ever get to Poland or Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, and Slovakia or any of those. Yeah, never got to those places. But pretty much all the rest of the countries in Europe except Switzerland I got to. I had a friend who worked on the CERN nuclear experiment station where they have the particle accelerator. They do all the particle accelerator experiments. I have a friend who worked at that. And that actually it's so big, it spans country borders.
Wow.
You get out, you can go down here and you're in Switzerland, you get up over there and you're in Italy or Germany. It's massive, ginormous thing. And he actually had that problem because he forgot his passport. He went on a walk, forgot his passport, came up and they almost arrested him because he didn't have his passport on him. And I was like, oh shoot, I left it on my desk. And you've transitioned from country A to country B. Yeah. So, I never got to South America for work, but I did get to Mexico a couple of times, at least once, Mexico City. And I was all over Canada. I've been to I was trying to remember if I've been to every province in Canada, at least most of them. I might have missed one or two. And so that's pretty much it. All across the United States, most of the states of the United States, not all of them. Mississippi and whatnot, they don't have a whole lot of software. So there you have it.
Nice.
Almost 25 minutes.